Hey, and welcome to this video where I want to talk to you about how long does it take to see results from an SEO strategy. Now, this is something that we get asked by clients all the time, both in my agency and in our white label SEO service. And I completely understand why, because, where else in the world do you go and expect to pay for something and not really know when it's going to be delivered or you're going to see results? You wouldn't go and buy a car without knowing when you were going to take delivery of it, for example. So I completely understand why clients ask this, but it's also one of the most awkward questions to answer because there's so many different variables and sort of metrics that are involved, and it's really difficult to give a hard and fast answer to what is going on. So what I'm going to do in this video is explain how long it will take for you to start seeing results from your SEO efforts, but I will also then talk about what you can do in that interim period between starting work with the client and actually seeing some of those tangible results. Now, to simply answer the question and give you kind of the generic stock answer, it's kind of, well, somewhere between 4 and 6 months in most markets to start seeing proper, qualified, sustainable results in the search engines. And then from that point, you will start to build on those results. So that isn't to say that SEO is fixed in 4 to 6 months, but what it is to say is that from 4 to 6 months, you will start to lay that groundwork. There will be an obvious increase in your search engine positions and the traffic and the quality that you're receiving from that traffic. And then from there, you've built that foundation level and you can build up in stages so that you keep on increasing the quality and increasing the traffic and increasing the keywords, etc., over a sustained period of time. Hopefully that is going to go on for months or years with your client, and you have a very fruitful relationship enjoying both of your success. That is the ultimate plan. The reality, though, is there's massive variables that are involved in every SEO project, and depending on how those variables affect each individual client, they can blow that timescale completely out of the water, or of course make it seem completely insignificant. So it really is sort of a sort of unique answer to each client when you understand a bit more about what's going on. The biggest three of these variables, which I'm going to mention in this video, are competition, inbound links, and content. So let's dive straight on into the competition. The reality is that any meaningful niche, the competition gets exponentially harder the higher up the search engines you go. So actually what happens for a lot of clients is that, it's quite easy to get them from almost being non-existent to getting a good number of keywords on pages 2, 3, 4 of the search engines. And then from there, it then becomes like you're trying to nail jelly to a wall, or you're wading through treacle. That's another expression for it. And one of the thing with competition is there's two sides to this. The first is that there's the competition in the niche, so the actual commercial competition of people trying to claw their way up onto page 1. The second side, which doesn't really get spoken about too often, is that in niches where that competition really has some value behind it, of course, your client probably isn't the only client that's employing an SEO in order to help them rank for those keywords. So you've got to balance the the competition level commercially versus essentially an SEO against an SEO. Who's got the better techniques? Who's doing the most? Who's getting the backlinks and where they're getting them from? All of those different things sort of compile into each other. So competition comes in waves, essentially, and as you increase your way up the search engines, those waves get exponentially harder. The other thing that I maybe just want to mention here, and this is going a little bit off topic, but it is worth understanding at this point how the search engines work. And if you take Google, for example, as an entity, Google is a business. It is trying to earn its own revenue and make money. And it does that by selling the ads, which appear above the organic search results. And in order to charge a premium for those top spots, what Google is constantly trying to do is make those results that are on page one the best organic results that it can find on the entire internet for that term, so that it can then increase its prices for the ad results that are above it. And then sort of conversely to that, you've then got the people running the ads who will probably have some kind of PPC professional working with them, so that they can then reduce the costs that people are paying for those ads by, increasing engagement rate and increasing conversions and reducing bounce rate and all of that kind of stuff. So you've got a bit of a sort of dichotomy process going on above you. And from an SEO, it really helps to understand that process. I'm not suggesting that you run ads for everything, but it helps to understand that process so that you understand what Google's trying to do with your data. So that's the first thing, competition. The second thing is inbound links. Now, it's no secret that links still play a massive role in SEO. However, it's no longer a numbers game, and thankfully the days have gone when SEOs used to go and spend a lot of money buying hundreds and hundreds of links and not really explaining to clients what they were doing, and then creating lots of links in footers to all the different variations of keywords and all that kind of stuff. It's now far more about quality and authority, and the reality of it is that a high quality link from a super relevant and super authority website in the niche of your client is going to go a lot further than just general links that you can get from anywhere on the internet. That takes time and it takes research, but it also means that you don't need the volume, so you can spend a bit longer trying to nurture each of those link prospects through the process. Now, with links, though, there is another thing that we've got to consider, which is the speed of acquisition. And there's not many parts of things that we do online now where actual history kind of reflects what goes on in the future. But link acquisition is one of those things where it does matter. So if you're working with a client that's never really proactively sought links before, working with them, just starting and working with them to instantly get links and creating a spike is a bad thing to do. And it could cause red flags and ultimately get them delisted. And if they get delisted from Google, you're probably the first person they're going to ring. So you don't really want that to happen. So what you need to do is understand the rhythm at which they've been acquiring links so far, and then to begin with, you try and match that rhythm and slowly start to increase that acquisition curve over the period of a few weeks and months, so that you can then start acquiring them at a faster rate in the future, but you can't do it right away. So that might start by, just sending 4 or 5 link acquisition emails out the first month, and then maybe increasing that to 6 or 7 the second month, and then maybe 10 in the third month, and slowly but surely you start to pick up the link acquisition, and it all looks perfectly natural, and Google's going to applaud you for it. The third area is content. Now, with content, I'm going to kind of buddy that up a little bit with design, and the first point I want to make about this is that your content and your design need to work. They need to be good, and that's also going to affect the link building efforts that we've just been talking about. I'd be lying if I said to you that I hadn't received emails in the past from people where we've been trying to build links for clients, and the prospects have turned around and said, your content might be great, but I don't want to be associated with that. It looks terrible, so we're not going to provide you a link. So making sure that you've done a design review and a content review so that there's actually a website that is worthy of the link with content that is worthy to be linked to, that is one of the massive factors that you can put in place. And even though it's in the content section, it relates to the link building comments that I was just making earlier. Thankfully, we're not in that place anymore where you have to write hundreds of short articles with keywords stuffed in all over the place and all of those internal links that I was mentioning earlier. We're not there anymore. Likewise, not every piece needs to be like a 5,000 word behemoth either. But again, it's back to that quality and that authority. So one of the things that Google looks for is consistency in your writing and in your distribution. But there is no punishment, like with links, for getting content out there quickly. So maybe a full-on content review is a perfect thing for your client. Once you've done your keyword research, just get that content that's already there as good as it possibly can be. But while you're doing that, make sure that you're developing both a sharing schedule and a future content schedule, so that when you get this new content out there, you're artificially essentially trying to stimulate eyes onto it so that Google's already getting some data. And then when you've done the whole piece of work and the website that already exists is optimized, that you've not run out of stuff to do. Otherwise, you're just back to square one. So what you need to do at that point is then have a schedule where you can release a piece of content every week or every fortnight, whatever works for you and your client. But then that's when you start to build up that consistency in distribution. There's loads of ways that you can put together those schedules. Something like the methodology of They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. That's a great place to start. If you just want to use some tools like Answer the Public, that's another brilliant place where you can start to fill out that schedule so that it doesn't just last a few weeks, but can go on for a long time into the future. So they're all great things, and they're all great things to understand and to know how this, the different factors and facets that put this thing together. But I haven't really solved the problem. What do I do between months 1 and 4 before I start to get some results that I can report back to my client? So here's what I would do. The first thing I would do is start with the quick wins. So for example, run a website health audit. You have to get the website healthy anyway in order to maximize the results that you're going to show to your client. So run that audit, because then for everything that you fix, you can rerun that audit and increase their health score. So if it starts at 72, you can run them a report next week that says, hey, look, I've got your health to 78 and I know what I'm going to do to break this 80 barrier. Then we're going to regroup and see how we get to 90. So all of a sudden you're creating that progress, even though it's not directly linked to the search engines. The second thing I'd do is I'd maybe phase my work. So the first phase that might be 3 or 4 weeks could be something like either discovery or reality. Discovery might actually confuse people with the discovery process for a project, I suppose. So maybe a reality phase. And that's where you're doing all of your research and you're running your initial audit reports and you're downloading the keywords that they're already ranking for with their current positions. And what the purpose of that is basically to create a benchmark. It's a reality check, but it's then a process that you can go through and then move on. So, right, we're now making progress. Then we might have a technical phase where we're tidying up everything on the website. Then we might have a phase that is about the on-site content. So that is that optimization piece we were talking about and the creating that ongoing content marketing plan. And then we get into the kind of the agreement proper. So the development phase or the building phase, whatever you want to call it. But that's actually starts around about month 4, funnily enough. And that's when you get into this monthly rhythm of reporting and action and reporting and action. We might then run the content and web design audit as part of that, as part of one of those phases, and get the client involved in it. So get them to start approving the copy. The more work you can give to them to do, the more they're going to understand that this is a long-term approach and that it is a collaboration between the agency and the client company, and that at no point are you really able to do SEO or finish SEO, because it's never going to be done. So you're going to have to keep on working together and collaborating together properly. The next thing I'd do is I'd probably start that link building quite early, because, let's face it, if all you're really starting to do is 4 or 5 outreach emails, it's not that much work at that stage in the game. And you probably don't want to go after the mega kind of authoritative website straight away, because you want to get that design and that content optimized first. So, but you can still get into the rhythm of it and start showing some results to your clients, so that you can drop them in a report. And again, it's about creating that feeling of momentum and that feeling of the process. And then the final thing I would do is create that consistent plan, include the client in that plan, and then keep on coming back to it. And you know what? I wouldn't create a plan for just like 6 months. I'd create a plan for at least a year. And then when we get 6 months into that year, I then add on another 6 months into the second year, and then to the end of the second year, then into the third year. And what that's doing is it's framing you and the client as working together for a long period of time. And it's also framing that you have their best interests at heart, which is really important. Of course, you must have their best interests at heart, but it's actually making that as clear as day to them. So that's how I would fill that interim period. And then, of course, when you then move into the main kind of agreement and you've got the reporting, it then does become about essentially report, rinse and repeat, and make sure that you're hitting those business goals that are really going to help your client through their organic SEO strategy. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you want to see more of this and I can help you out with content, please let me know. I'm dedicated and committed to making this YouTube channel a success. So please subscribe and drop me a comment, with any feedback that you've got, but also to let me know if there's any topics you'd like me to cover in future videos. I'll see you next time.